Hey,
Mhm.
you were doing that down there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I've got to tear in a minute. Yeah.
Can you turn mic up?
Hey, Mike, can you hear us? Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
Great, you betcha.
I'm not hearing anything. Maybe bring mine up a little bit. I am mic 8. Check. There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
You don't need to hear me. I'm not going to talk
So currently we have Jennifer, Mike, and Nicole Sterling online, and Elizabeth is just about to join.
And we can hear you now.
Sorry, I had the meeting muted.
No
Great.
worries, that's good.
This is Mike. I can hear you too.
Awesome. You should just got it. Alrighty. So meeting starting at 6:03, and you want to go ahead? Sorry.
I'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting for September 24th to order, and call the roll, please.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem Sterling.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Awesome. Commissioner Mahol,
Here.
Commissioner Pinziner,
Here.
Commissioner Dye,
Here, but no cat.
Commissioner Cornell,
Here.
Chair Reese,
Here.
Vice Chair Williams.
Here, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you.
And then currently Linda Glasser is going to be absent, and Timmy Duggan is currently absent. Okay.
Okay. So at this time, if there's anybody that had, oh, I'm sorry, we'll do the minutes first. Look at my agenda, that'll help. I would, if everybody got a chance to review the minutes, anyone who was wondering about them being kind of slim, it was because the work session is not included in that. Those are just the meeting minutes from our last meeting. So if anybody saw any errors, let us know now. Otherwise, I'd accept a motion to pass the minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Alrighty. Chair Reese,
Yes.
Commissioner Cornell, Commissioner Dye,
Yes.
Commissioner Pinziner,
Yes.
Commissioner Mahol,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Williams wasn't here, so I will.
Yep,
move
absent.
forward.
Abstain.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. If there's anybody here that wants to speak on a non-agenda item, this would be your chance, either online or in the audience. I would just need you to come up to the podium or let yourself be known online, and you will have 3 minutes. Just give us your name and address, and we will let you have your say. Nobody online?
So non-agenda items would include any discussion from the work sessions? Or,
The sub-area plan's on the agenda.
yeah, I wanted to clarify that so people know.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes, you are correct.
Good point. Okay, I will close public comment on non-agenda items, and we'll move on to our first action item, which is action 5.1, front yard bakery stand use. And,
That's the old,
oh,
Yeah.
uh-oh.
if you guys want to move that towards an action, that can happen.
What is the first item then?
it was the sub-area plan, but Brittany's here if we want to go ahead and move on to the bakery. It's totally up to you.
Is there any legal problems with shifting that around a little bit, Attorney Madsen?
You're muted, Jennifer.
I hate that when that happens. That's fine if you want to have it as a discussion item, but handle it first. Is that what the request is?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, then I'll go ahead and start, if that's okay with you.
Sounds good. Thank you
Okay.
for keeping us straight here.
Yes. So staff is bringing this item to the planning commission because the proposed use does not clearly fit into the existing use group table within town's zoning code. The applicant, Brittany, who's sitting here today, is seeking guidance on or clarification, staff is as well, on the small scale home-based business as a permitted use. So the proposal is operating a small home-based bakery stand under the Colorado Cottage Food Act. The primary goals are to provide fresh homemade goods to the local community and to operate in a way that maintains the residential character of the property. This is a simple operation run solely by Brittany with light foot traffic, limited hours, again, just to provide some food for the community. Frequency right now, the operation days and hours are still being finalized. Don't expect it to be a big operation here. There's a photo of it in the AIM as well, if you have any questions on that. The stand may be open daily or on select days. It really just depends on demands. Customers will stop by briefly, pick up their pre-ordered items or small quantities available at the stand. This is not intended to function as a traditional retail storefront. Minimum impact to be expected for traffic impact. No commercial level traffic is anticipated. The stand will be solely operated by Brittany. There will be no hired employees. All baking will occur within the applicant's home as authorized under the Colorado Cottage Food Act. And again, like I said, the photo is there below. And customers can select items and pay using a lockbox. Security cameras will monitor the stand for accountability. Staff analysis, the proposed use aligns with the intent of allowing home operations that have minimum impacts on neighbors and preserve residential character. However, the town's zoning code does not clearly define or classify a self-serve bakery stand under the use group. So potential considerations are whether the self-serve sales in front yards constitute as retail activity that requires a different level of review or permitting. Potential impacts, which we've kind of covered within the AIM. And whether there needs to be additional conditions. You want limits on signage or hours of operations, anything along that lines. So really, we're requesting feedback from you guys if there's any concerns about the potential neighborhood impacts. Does the proposed use meet the intent of the town's regulations for home occupations? Should conditions be applied for hours of operation, signage, or frequency? Is this a permissible as is, or should there be conditional use review? Should staff explore code amendment to clarify how cottage food stands are handled in the use group table for future applicants or some kind of licensing? And then last question, would the PC like to see this come back as a resolution with the applicant? That is something that Jennifer recommended, is we have a resolution so she can move forward with this and it's clearly defined. Our recommendation is just for you guys to review it, provide feedback, and formally recommend this matter be forwarded to the Board of Trustees as an action item.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sorry, that was really quick. What?
So now would be the time if there's clarifying questions from the PC for the staff regarding this item. Now would be the time.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to hear from you what the business is all about, because I see this box. I understand
Okay,
it's
wait,
food.
no, we're not
Okay.
changing the process. Let's
Okay.
finish with the
But I
clarifying
just-
process.
That was my clarifying question.
That's
Can we
to
have
the staff,
speak?
to the
Yeah.
staff, and then we'll
All right.
open it up.
Okay.
Well, my question is why, I mean, I looked at the home occupation chapter and it seems to absolutely fit. So I don't understand the question that it doesn't fit. And then the only reason I jumped up there, because I thought then the next step would be if you reviewed it under that situation, it would come back to here for a hearing that we would make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. is the way.
Yes, originally I'd written this as an action item and it got changed, so I just didn't update the aim fully.
Well, you
So
said it
that
would
was
just
all.
go to, if we agreed that all these things
It
fit
would come
today.
back to you as a resolution.
Well, you didn't
yeah.
say that. You said it would go to
I
the
know,
board.
that's what I'm telling you is I didn't have, I got switched last minute. I added this on last minute because I think it's silly to have this applicant
No, I
not
mean,
have this
just 2
use.
minutes ago, you said that if we kind of agreed today, then it would go. Cause yeah, this is not action item, so we can't take an action.
That's part of my question. Could we move it to an action item and just direct the town attorney to bring it back as a resolution? Can we do, is that
Well,
something we can
that
do?
would be about the same though, to bring it back as a resolution.
If I were the applicant, I would feel better if I knew it was, that it had the recommendation of the commission and it was a formality to get a resolution written.
Okay.
Well, let me ask just some background. Why doesn't this fall under like a peddler's license kind of application?
Or home.
Peddler's licenses aren't intended for, the way that the code is written, it's not really intended for a use like this. It's for a door-to-door sales kind of situation. And so I think that what we know is that the use group table specifically asks for the recommendation of the planning commission and the board of trustees if a use doesn't seem to fit within the table, but may be appropriate for the scale of a zone, essentially.
Okay. What would be the process if this was gonna, let's say there was 4 different people in town that wanted to do some similar type idea like this? What would be the process for allowing for that in the future then if it doesn't meet the peddler license?
I think that's really I think that might be beyond your scope as a planning commission.
Okay.
I think what we'll probably be doing is looking at our chapter 6 regulations, which are kind of the clerk regulations for licensing and contracting and all of those kinds of things. I think for the planning commission, the question like Britt illustrated is really, are uses like this appropriate in different zones where the impact is minimal and it's a home-based business that seems compatible with the area and doesn't create impacts. I think that the process for now, that would remain the same as we'd bring those things to you. A lemonade stand may be a bad example because that's a different kind of thing, but this is really what it amounts to, is something with just minimal traffic and a home-based business. But I think that's really the question, the policy question before you, is if you would, I guess how you view that.
Well, the reason, what I was trying to get at is it seems like something that should be more of a staff action without us being involved, but that's fine.
You could add like some language to the use table that would cover something like this for a very low impact kind of operation like this, that would just basically allow that it would become like a use by right, essentially, in that, if it was in that use table for whatever zone districts you choose to implement it in. And I think like also there's challenges with the way the use table is written in CBD that are different than in some of our residential areas that might also be things that are worth talking about, that we just kind of been just uses that may not have been contemplated when that table was created. So I think that could be a conversation, is looking at that use table. This is similar to the conversation we had about the overlay district. Should certain kinds of outdoor sales be explicitly allowed? And maybe under certain conditions, that's a yes. But I think that's probably the bigger policy question. And I think that when that use table was created, the planning commission at the time did contemplate situations like this, which is why that addendum language is there, just to make sure that you have the flexibility to have that, to make that decision.
Okay.
Chair Reese,
Yes, ma'am.
could I address the question about why this is before you tonight? I mean, what John has said is absolutely accurate, but there is also a specific provision in chapter 16, which speaks to home occupations, and that's section 16-76. Under that section of the code, it says a home occupation shall be allowed as a permitted accessory use, provided that the following conditions are met. And there are conditions 1 through 8. And one of those conditions, paragraph 8, says the structure is with the home occupation is in F, MR, LDR, MDR, or HDR zone. So it doesn't allow for home occupations in CBD.
I see.
So that is really the crux of why this is before you tonight. Also, there's another provision there, section 6, which says there shall be no exterior storage on the premises of material, customer property, or equipment used as part of the home occupation. Arguably, that stand that's in the front yard also meets that criteria. And so for those reasons, that's why this is before you. And then there is a further paragraph in here that goes on to say that in the event there's a requested home occupation that's not clearly permitted or prohibited, the Planning Commission shall review and recommend, and the Board of Trustees shall finally determine whether that particular home occupation is consistent with the section for classification as a home-based business.
Okay. Could you tell me that section and number again, please?
16-76. It's in the supplemental regulations section.
Right. Jim, can I speak?
Please do.
Well, this does bring clarification, but Jim and I actually saw this. We were just looking at the agenda, excuse me, Steve, and there was no documentation of where it was.
Right.
So that's why I immediately went to exactly that, to the 76 home occupation. And so, yeah, this kind of change, I understand now where you're coming from, but there was no description that it was in the commercial area.
Right.
Just the fact
Yeah.
that you couldn't find it in the
Yeah, I
code.
didn't know where it was.
So, maybe we need to clarify where it's at before we even go on, because otherwise, other than the one, and that's borderline, so a little stand, because that's the way I was looking at it. It would be no different someone saying growing tomatoes and had a little tomato stand out there where people drive by, which you see, and say, it had chickens and had eggs and would put eggs out there. So that's why I spoke to say this absolutely fits home occupation. But if it's in the central business district, or it's not, and that's very clear that it needs to be in a residential district to fit a home occupation. So I guess that's part of our problem with our zoning, that how do we have residents in central business district? So that's the quagmire.
Okay. Anybody online that has any clarifying questions before we hear from the applicant?
Yeah, this is Mike Dye. I do have a couple of questions, clarifying questions. Like I understand now that's in the CBD. I love this idea. I mean, an easy solution might be to add the CBD into this list of section, what was it? 16-76.
76.
But that kind of begs the question, like, why wasn't that included in the first place? Does anybody have any historical knowledge on that?
I think I just explained it, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's because it's home
Yeah.
occupation. A
Right.
home has to
Yeah.
be in residential zone.
Okay,
So
yeah,
that's the
makes
basic
sense.
right across the thing.
yep. And this probably gets into discussion, which you can save for later, but then it's like, I don't yet see any downside of including that in this case.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else before we hear from the applicant? Okay, having heard none, we'll close the clarifying questions. And now please come up and tell us what you'd like to tell us about your business, and
Can I
we'll ask you
things
some
Real
questions.
quick.
Please.
So in CBD though, you do allow mixed use. So yeah, you wouldn't have single family, but there are residential, which is I think what this was, or it was done before, was the original intent of this property. So I just wanted to add that to like Mike's point, that could make sense since there is a form of residential use that is allowed within those zones.
Okay.
There's several of those, but anyways, go ahead, Brittany.
Hi, my name's Brittany.
Can you hit the button there and it'll
Is it
turn
on?
green?
Oh.
There you go. There you go. Just
Okay.
lean right up against it.
Hi, my name's Brittany. I'm trying to open a micro bakery. I make sourdough bread and cinnamon rolls and bagels and cookies and such. I'm just trying to open a little stand to sell my stuff out of. It's not trying to make it like a big giant thing. I live right there behind Kathmandu, kind of by the RTD lot next to the A-frame. You know where that's at?
Yes, I do.
So yeah, I live right behind there. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
So the business model is essentially you cook it inside, you bring it out, and
Correct.
we drop our money in the lockbox and get
Correct.
on the bus.
Yeah,
Okay,
correct. Yeah.
I like the idea.
I also have like a Venmo thing, so you can like scan and pay with Venmo or
Great.
with cash. And then there's also a camera out there as well. So
Okay. Other questions?
Or is it on the highway side, or is it on whatever the other street there? I'm not certain. Jackson, what's the name of the?
no,
other
it's on the highway right there.
It's on the highway.
Correct, yeah.
It's just a block short of the liquor store, so.
Right, it's
park-
right there.
I understand. I understand where the A-frame is. So is there adequate parking or a pull-in? If
I
someone,
mean, right now I do pre-orders online, and if there's not parking right there, people tend to park in the RTD lot and just walk over. It's like a 20-second walk to my house from the RTD lot.
or on the other street?
Right.
So those kind of right in front of what used to be Nikki's Nook there, that little
I'm
building.
not familiar with
Okay.
that.
I see the not.
A-frame.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the house next to the A-frame.
Okay. What level of traffic do you anticipate? How many, well, let's change that around. How many sales do you do typically in a day?
I mean, maybe 2 or 3
Okay,
in pre-orders, like not that many.
pretty small. It's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
And do you ever anticipate getting to the point where you're doing 30 to 40 orders in a day, getting to that
No.
big?
No, I mean, I plan to set things out there for people to buy, but I mean, it would be a quick thing, like they wouldn't be standing there forever, or like taking up parking or, it would just be a quick thing.
So it'd be rare that you ever even have 2 people probably showing up at the
Yeah,
same time.
yeah.
Okay. Questions from commissioners online or here in the room?
Well, this is Steve. I'm trying to think of what the parking or what the side of the road is like there, because I think people, rather than go to park somewhere, they may just try to pull off the road and as close as possible and walk. So I don't know, maybe we could discuss about maybe there should be some signage or something put
Yeah,
up.
there is street parking. People do pull off and park there to go into the liquor store and such, but usually it's
Yeah,
full.
but that's not on the highway, right?
No, it is.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, there's side parking on both sides of the highway.
Right, but not, I was talking about the front of the stand.
No, I mean, there's a street side parking right there in front of the stand, but I mean, it would just be like one spot parallel parked right there.
Could that be solved by you asking your customers to pull around the corner and not park on 119?
Yeah, I could like let them know that they need to park in the RTD lot because it's just like a 10-second walk.
Right.
Right. If it's open. A lot of times it's not open, but
You gotta turn your mic on, otherwise it online. Okay. Anybody else? Other questions online?
Yeah, hi there. This is Mike Dye. Like I said before, I really love the idea. I think it adds a lot to the character of Netherland in a quirky, fun kind of way. It's something I've kind of dreamed myself of doing someday with other stuff. Just wanted to say, like, if you could bake 30 or 40 loaves of sourdough a day in your own home, that would be an impressive feat.
yeah.
But
That's a lot.
I was curious if you'd talked to the nearby residents and businesses about it.
I mean, I've talked to the tattoo shop right there and he's okay with it.
Mhm.
I haven't spoke with the liquor
Yeah.
store.
Yeah.
But no, I
Yeah.
could.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah. I'm fully in support of it. I think I'd recommend that you do that if before it goes to the Board of Trustees, just to
okay,
get to gather community support.
okay.
Um, my only other question was that so on an unattended food stand, there was curious what you do to mitigate impacts on wildlife, because bears and moose love sourdough too. Probably more.
I
Yeah.
don't plan on leaving anything out there after dark.
Right.
So I plan on, bringing it maybe an hour or so before dark, which,
Mhm.
as you know, changes. So I can't have like a set time. And I also have cameras out there that,
Yeah.
any kind of motion or anything, it'll detect me so I can like check it regularly.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, we do get bears during the day. We have
Yeah.
them up here.
Correct.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah.
And you're right, Mike, they do like sourdough.
Yeah.
Who doesn't?
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Maybe I should just ask, are people in favor of allowing this use? And if so, I guess I'd look for some help from the staff on what form we want this to take.
Let's,
First off, is there anybody that has any issues with this in the planning commission?
can we have a little discussion, clarification? I mean, I know we've had a lot, but yeah, it seems we're at the point where we kind of agree, but if staff, again, yes, could come up with a way to, say, make this fit, or if we even have to change the use group. Cause I clearly, again, I think, and what we just said, when you said it is allowed, but it's neighborhood commercial. So again, that's the commercial versus home. So it falls into that. So we need to honor the historical thing there. So this is clearly in commercial area. So I absolutely agree. All we have to do is, and maybe it does fit. I don't know. I didn't go all through, because the use groups in those paragraphs, it's just describing one area, but it probably, this is the type of thing, as everybody spoke, that we want to actually have in the commercial area. Walk up there. I don't see the conflict. It's certainly not less of a conflict, say, than a vendor van, a food truck coming in and competing. Am I not wrong? It's similar to that. And that's even a larger issue. So what I guess I'm saying is, if we could let staff know that we're in agreement with this, find a path to put it into our code or make our code work. And I think we'd come back and have a public hearing. That is, because this is just a discussion, have an actual public hearing that people could give us feedback and then pass it on to the Board of Trustees. I would absolutely embrace that.
So Roger, are you saying that we have to change section 1676 to include CBD?
No, I'm not. I'm saying let's get it into where Britt went in the beginning about where the use group, where that type of thing would fit. And into the commercial use group.
I think one thing I just note is the code provides you an explicit path to do this with the resolution. I think there's really two questions before you. This use does have a path forward illustrated in code, as we just talked about, but then there may be a larger issue where you just want to allow the use in the use table as well. And I would just say that for the applicant who's trying to start a business, if there's a path, it might be the most expedient to consider whether that resolution is an option for this business and then look at the use group table as a whole. And I'm just suggesting that you guys have the latitude to have that discussion and decision.
To expedite things for her
Yeah.
to be able to, okay.
There is no public hearing required for this. The code change with the ordinance would require the public hearing and notice and all those things. And that is certainly a path we could take. And I think I agree with Roger. It wouldn't take long to do that, but there is a path forward for this person. It's not That's what's contemplated with that language.
Right.
Could you
Well, I
just
agree
please
with
turn
that
off your mic when
then,
You talk there, buddy.
because
Well,
all my thoughts were that it was home occupation. I had no idea it was in central business district. Because, you know, it just seemed like
So
a home
again,
occupation.
this is Steve again. Do we have to change section 1676 to include CBD? I think that was my original question.
It
What-
shouldn't need to be
Because this
changed,
is a home occupation, right?
but didn't it say that we can review it if it isn't a good fit and we can pass on our recommendation for the board to allow it? I mean, it seems like if we don't need to change the whole, okay, sorry, go ahead.
Well,
Oh.
no,
You got it.
I guess, and that's sort of what I'm getting at. Do we need to change 1676 or leave it as it is and just allow this as like it's not a special use, special review use or anything, but to allow this on a one-time basis kind of thing? I guess I'm confused how we're proceeding.
It's like what John said.
So John said, yes, we can look at the code and the use group, but for this applicant, so that we don't have to spend 3 months waiting, we can do the resolution tonight so that she could get on with her business. And then we could look at changing the use group table at a later time.
I think Attorney
Oh,
Madsen had
okay.
a comment too.
So the code does say that in the event there is a requested home occupation that is not clearly permitted or prohibited, that the planning commission shall review and recommend. So right now, what I'm thinking is that I mean, I think that, and it's not my opinion, but I think the business is great for Netherland, and I hear that you guys really want to make this happen. But it is clearly prohibited by the code because it's not in, because it's in the CBD.
Right.
And so, I mean, I do think that, one path forward would be to do a resolution, and in the resolution say the intent is to change the code. And then have you guys recommend approval of that, of bringing a resolution before the Board of Trustees. And then we'd come back kind of quickly and amend this section of the code so that it is consistent with this particular use.
Yeah, that was my question because I was uncomfortable. I mean, I'm all for this, but I'm uncomfortable going forward when it doesn't agree with the code.
Exactly.
But it does say that we could do a special review or conditional use permit in the zone district. So it does allow for that to happen, if I understand what John was saying correctly.
So you're saying, Steve, you would not feel comfortable doing a resolution to solve this so that, and then come back and look at
No.
changing the use group table, or are you? Can you
No,
help?
I didn't say that. I'm just saying, what is our path forward to allow this to happen, yet be compliant with our code?
So I thought that's what the attorney just told us. She said we could do a resolution tonight and then with that and say we intend to come back and change the use group. I think there'll probably be a little more involved in the meeting. We would, for changing the actual use group, we probably want to talk about, some of the things from the picture and from the applicant. I can clearly see that traffic noise and appearance is not going to be a problem with this. You said you're not going to operate after dark, an hour before dark. So hours of operation, signage or frequency of operation don't seem like they would be an issue. As we just go down the stuff here. So my hope would be that we could do the resolution tonight and give some relief to the applicant so she could get on with her business and then come back and do the longer term fix with the use group. But that's just my opinion.
Right.
I concur.
If that's what Jennifer said, we could do the resolution tonight. That was unclear to me, but absolutely. I think Jennifer laid it out to, let's let staff do their, work through it for us. But if we need a resolution tonight to go forward, I agree.
So can I make a suggestion? Right now, this is on discussion. So I would suggest that you move this to an action item.
And then once it's moved to an action item, then what you could do is somebody could make a motion to direct town staff to draft a resolution for the Board of Trustees recommending approval of this business in the CBD. And if there's any parameters that you want to put on that recommended approval, such as that, food is taken out of the container before dark, whatever you want to, if you want to add any kind of conditions to that recommendation.
Oh, okay. So, and how do we do this? We need to have a vote to change that?
Yes, a motion to move it to an action item, second on the motion, and then a vote on that motion. And then you would approve a motion to recommend approval of this use, this home occupation use.
Thank you, folks, for bearing with us as we work our way through this. Is there anybody on the planning commission that is opposed to us taking that action tonight? Fleek up.
I think I am.
You're opposed to doing that tonight?
Well, I think that, I think there's something wrong with having a discussion that we knew nothing about an item, and then to say, we're going to make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, and let's all sit here in kind of a work session atmosphere, and in the next half an hour, slam this all together when, it should be agenda item, and we should have a chance to think of all those things you might want. So in principle, I'm not against, but I'm against, the way we're putting this all together, just slamming it together. That's no way to, what's the emergency?
I would disagree. I think the emergency is the weather, and I don't like to stand in the way of somebody being able to open their business because we didn't look at the packet. I think that I really like to see a business. I looked ahead at the treasurer's report and saw how far off our sales tax revenues are. I don't think this is going to help our sales tax revenues all that much, but I really like to see, as a business owner, I don't like to stand in the way of somebody else opening a business, even by a month. And it got a lot colder this week, and it's going to get a lot colder before we approve this if we kick it down the road another month. So I would disagree.
Taken. I will consent to going forward, because that's obviously, and I agree that's what we wanted, but I still want to make my point that this is no way to run a planning commission. Okay.
Thank
Now
you.
let's go forward.
Okay. Kumbaya.
Anybody else online have any comments on this? Otherwise, I would accept a motion to change this to an action item.
Motion to move this discussion item to an action item.
Second.
Vice Chair Williams, sorry.
Are you on? I should.
Nope, I'm not. Vice Chair Williams,
We're voting?
Yes.
to make this an action item, yes.
Okay, action item tonight, not next meeting.
Correct, yes.
Okay, and we can do that.
Yes. And then we'll have another one after this where we talk about the resolution piece.
Well,
Jennifer, do they need to say that now, actually?
I mean, so there's multiple ways that you can do this. You can have, it doesn't need to be an action item if you're going to bring it back to a future planning commission meeting. So it could be a discussion item with direction to bring it back. Or if you move it to action tonight, then the action is directing the staff to put together a resolution that goes before the Board of Trustees. So essentially you wouldn't be able to see that resolution, but you would be making a motion for your recommendation to bring it before the Board of Trustees. That would be the quickest path to get this to the board.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
I would like to, I agree to go that route that she just did. Make a resolution to the Board of Trustees, and I'm good with that. Because we would certainly have time to put in our 2 cents if there was some other issue there. But that's, as she said, the fastest way to make it happen.
I think we were in the middle of a vote and Steve was deciding whether or not he was gonna.
Well, we need to, I think, redo the motion if you
You
guys
need to
are wanting
review the motion because I'm not comfortable with the way the motion was made.
Then please make a motion.
Go ahead, Steve. How do you think it ought to sound?
Well, let me see here. Make a motion to approve the discussion. Well, I guess do we have to make a motion to make it an action item first,
That's
right?
that's what the vote
Okay,
was.
I
We're
understand that, but with the stipulation that this item will come back to the planning commission to update the proper code to make this legal. I know that's kind of a weird way to put it, but that's what we're saying, right?
I don't think that's what needs to go in the resolution, though. We're just directing the staff that we want this issue to come back to us so we can look at the use group table. I don't think that needs to go into this specific resolution or motion.
And that's
Well-
not what the attorney said either.
Yeah.
The motion was for staff, is to direct staff to create the resolution and take it before the Board of Trustees.
Yeah.
That's the motion.
But we're trying to even get to an action item. So we're stuck right now where we need to change it. We're just trying to do the vote to move it from a discussion item to action item. And then there'll be a second motion
Second motion.
for the resolution. And maybe that's where you can fit in some of that stuff.
Okay, I make the motion, I'll clarify my motion. That the motion is to move tonight's discussion item to an action item. And then we'll have another vote subsequent.
Second,
Okay, let's try again.
Okay. Chair Reese, sorry.
Yes.
Vice Chair Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Cornell,
yes,
Commissioner Dye,
Yes.
Commissioner Pinzner,
Yes.
Commissioner Mahol,
Yes.
Commissioner Duggan.
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
motion passes. So now we would,
Do you want to do the second one?
no, I will
Okay.
not. So, but there might be some discussion here before we get to the actual making. You don't have to stand there the whole time. Sorry about that. So we're just trying to figure out how we can get you selling your sourdough bread before the snow makes that almost impossible. So,
better once the snow falls.
yeah, it is, but it's harder for outside businesses. So now would be the time, Steve, to talk about why you're uncomfortable and what you think needs to happen, buddy. You have more knowledge than I do on the code and stuff, so help us understand what the problem is.
Well, I'm comfortable with passing something that is in conflict with the code. And that's why I asked the original question about section 16-76, whether we have to change the code to make this happen or direct staff to come back with a revised 1676.
So I think what Attorney Mattson said was we could do both, but separately. We could request a resolution that we would vote on to recommend approval for this use and then send that on to the BOT. And then we would also have the staff bring back under a separate action item, non-related to the applicant tonight, for us to look at changing the use group table. So that is, as far as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, Attorney Mattson, is the path that I thought was described.
Yes, that's what I was thinking. I understand your concerns, Commissioner Williams, and those are very valid concerns. The town staff has authority and discretion in terms of enforcing any violations of the code. And so this person, if this resolution were passed to specify that you know, the planning commission recommends that this use is permitted, that, and then the board of trustees approves it. It's really giving, it's communicating that everybody likes the use, they want it to continue. And then in the resolution, there would be, we intend to change the code so that staff really wouldn't be able to enforce against this person for an unlawful use.
Well, so they have to be tied together though, right? Did I
And
hear
the-
that it has two separate,
Yeah,
two separate?
Right. The way they would be tied together, the way I'm envisioning this is that there would be a whereas clause that says that there is an intent by the town to amend the code so that this use is permitted under a home occupation or some other means of amending the code. I mean, your home occupation section is really very limited, and it's understandable that this type of situation has come up.
No, not really.
Okay.
And it's, can I?
It's not perfect, but it's a solution.
Okay, so I think the biggest thing for, we wanted points in the resolution. So I think the biggest points that we should say that there are a few purely, truly residential uses within the central business district, within commercial. So as far as the home occupation, and the way that it described all the zones that it was allowed, we to me, the biggest thing for me then would just say that where it's clearly residential use within those other zones, then the home occupancy, home occupation should also apply then. So, and that's why we're having a difficult time with it, because it's a home and, the zoning says not allowed, but then everything else about the home occupation does fit. So if we just, and there's a dozen maybe homes, that are non-conforming uses. So, I'm actually good if we, go ahead and move and then have staff figure out a way to make that all work and pass it on to the board of trustees for these non-conforming uses, that they should be able to have home occupation standards.
I agree. I think probably this just hasn't come up before now, or somebody didn't actually
No,
take the time to come down to town hall and see about doing everything correctly. And so this is just, it's the first time we're dealing with it. And so we're having to try and figure out how to do it. But I agree. I think that this is something that we can, as long as we all feel like this is appropriate use, it shouldn't be a hard thing to change the code, use table at a later time, hopefully, relatively soon, in the next few months before the end of the year.
Yeah, I don't see why we couldn't bring it up in November,
Oh, okay.
if
Well,
that works.
that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, so
so you're gonna bring it back to us now?
now's the time where if you have any comments or additions or heartache, let's get it all out now before we start to try and put together the resolution or the motion, excuse me. Anybody online? All right, who's going to be the brave soul who tries to make the motion here?
Staff always gave us one to work with.
Okay, I'll try. Okay, recognizing that we made, this is now an action item. The resolution is to,
The motion.
the motion is to direct staff to create the resolution and bring this before the Board of Trustees at their next meeting with our support, and to simultaneously direct staff to correct this this clause or clarify this clause in 1676 to make it explicit to allow this type of business in neighborhood commercial.
Does that meet the requirement, Attorney Mattson?
It's,
That's good with one clarification though, isn't it, in CBD?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, not, yeah, CBD.
Okay, then I amend my amendment or my proposal to include all of CBD and not just neighborhood commercial. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Do you understand that?
Yes,
Britt?
yeah,
Okay.
I'm just gonna directly pull that from
Okay.
the meeting.
5 minutes ago, they were saying it would come to the November meeting here. Now we're saying.
No, so what I was saying is at the October meeting, we would go ahead and pass this resolution, but I'm assuming you guys are gonna want to see a draft ordinance of the code updates.
Yeah.
That was my thought process, which is why I pushed that item out to November so that we actually spent more time on it.
So that we will then look at that and
Mhm.
have discussion and
Correct.
approve the change in the use.
Yep,
table.
and then I can post it, publicly notice it, all that.
Okay.
Yep.
With that clarification, I'm, that's fine. Let's, with that
Please,
clarification.
please call the vote.
All righty. Commissioner Duggan?
Yes.
Commissioner Mahol?
Yes.
Commissioner Pinzner?
Yes.
Commissioner Dye?
Yes.
Commissioner Cornell?
I think so.
Chair
Yeah.
Reese?
Yes.
Vice Chair Williams?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Clear as mud. All right. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for coming out, ladies, and good luck. I hope you do a lot of sales.
And thanks for doing this right.
Frozen sourdough.
I don't think that was going to take that long.
Well,
All right. Yep. Duly noted. I will take your comments under advisement. Okay. So the next item that we're going to be talking about is the discussion 6.1. I might be working off an old agenda. Design criteria and overlay district discussion continuation. And then so that's what we're going to be working on. And we're going to review the intent of this is to review the checklist for the design criteria for the overlay district and to summarize and go over everything that we talked about at the work session. And for those who were not here, to have a chance to weigh in and give their feedback so that we can kind of get this finalized and ready for that to come back for as an action item next month with the resolution included or with the ordinance included. So whoever is introducing that, I will let you take it from here.
Sure. So would you guys prefer that I run through the list of the decisions we've made? Would that be preferred first?
Yes, I
Okay.
think so. Please review that and then
Yep.
we'll go down and we'll have further discussion on each item to affirm, yeah, we still
Okay.
are in agreement with that.
Okay, perfect.
Or not.
Alrighty, just making sure. Alrighty, so just as a reminder, we've been kind of working on this for a little while. We held 2 work sessions, August 27th and September 9th. So I'm just going to kind of summarize what we went over. So on our decision checklist under overlay district boundaries, should the overlay district apply to only First Street? I had notes to include Snyder and the 10 Shed. And the second question was, should it extend to portions of Second Street as suggested in the plan? I just put the majority of PC commissioners agreed yes, since not everyone was present. Should PUDs within the overlay be required to comply with overlay standards? The majority of PC commissioners agreed yes, stating that the overlay standards be incorporated into the PUD standards. I believe, hopefully I captured that right. Yard and bulk regulations, maximum lot coverage of 80%. The majority of PC commissioners agreed yes. And then I just had a note that from that meeting, Ron Mitchell had added 80% surface coverage. Front yard setback 10 feet instead of 0. The majority of PC commissioners agreed yes. Rear yard setbacks 15 feet or 5 feet where alley present. Again, this was a yes. Maximum building height 35 flat roof, 43 pitched roof. Majority felt in agreement with 35 flat roof. And was it 40? I might have made it.
45.
Was it 45? Yeah, 45 pitched roof. I did want to note, there are still some undecided members that weren't at the meeting from what I've heard. So I did want to, relay that.
Further
if-
discussion? Yeah.
Correct. Maximum stories of 3. The majority of PC commissioners agreed yes to this. Required 20-foot setback for 3rd floor on First Street. The majority of PC commissioners agreed yes. Eliminate parking requirements for ground floor commercial, yes. Allowable uses, explicitly allow outdoor sales, dining, and activities without SRU. This was a majority yes. The commissioners would like to see some criteria for staff to check off to allow this use. Limit marijuana uses on First Street. So this will end up being another discussion item tonight. A few of the commissioners agreed with this initially, but decided there needed to be more discussion. Commissioner Mike and Commissioner Elizabeth both stated they didn't really see the difference between allowing the marijuana use and alcohol use being allowed on First Street. A commissioner brought forth, if we were thinking about limiting that additional marijuana retail stores, then we should think about eliminating additional liquor stores on First Street. Again, First Street only, so just kind of outlining some of the discussion had. Design standards, building height, width, and mass of building. For the adoption maximum width of 200 feet for any single building, the commissioners felt there needed to be more discussion. I was able to get some information from Cheney that I'll go over later when we discuss it.
Okay.
Required articulation every 40 feet, meaning column spacing, awnings, offset, and material change. PC commissioners suggested writing no more than 40 or at least every 40. I kind of heard both, but I can definitely clear that up. Require 3rd floor setback on First Street. This was a yes as well. Establish maximum footprint for developments, half a block, the majority yes. Require minimum percentage of open space. PC commissioners agreed on this, suggested 20% since it's 80% maximum for the, forget how it was stated, coverage. Let's see. Exterior materials and roof forms require natural materials like that wood, brick, metal look for a set percentage of facade. The commissioners agreed that there should be an appearance of natural material, but no percentage was suggested. Discourage large amounts of stuccos, stone veneer, and concrete. This was a yes. Encourage flat roofs with parapets. I always say that wrong. Or front-facing gables. Majority agreed on this. Discourage complex roofs. Agreed on this as well. Storefronts and pedestrian realm. Encourage awning for weather protection. Majority agreed on this. Allow encroachment up to blank feet. The PC felt this is a Board of Trustees decision, but they did agree that towns should allow awnings and sides to encroach with some kind of agreement. I think that's the discussion John had with all of us. Required 10-foot setback to serve as a sidewalk extension. This was a yes. Require ramps be integrated into the site design. The PC agreed, but asked this item to be removed as it is a requirement. But I just wanted to make that note here.
Because of ADA
Yeah,
regulations?
ADA requirements for that's correct. Compatibility standards require new buildings to align window lines, parapets, and scale with neighbors. The majority of PC agreed on this. Require step downs or plazas with adjacent to smaller structures. Yes, as well. Establish max grade difference between First Street and finished floor to avoid, what is that word? Plinth?
Plinth.
Yeah, condition. This was a yes as well. So our further discussion would be on any of these items that anyone felt like needed to bring up, but the two that I had outlined here were 200 feet for any single building and the limit marijuana uses on First Street.
Okay. I would ask we'll do clarifying questions to the staff, but I'd ask that you keep those pretty limited so we could get to public comment and then get into the meat of discussion on this. So if there is any brief clarifying questions for the staff, please give them now.
I'll just say one thing. I wasn't here for that meeting, but I didn't hear anything I disagree with. So I would say I'm in alignment with everything that was decided at that meeting.
Okay. Anybody online have a clarifying question? Okay.
I have one question. Go over the district dimension. What are the boundaries of the overlay?
Yeah, so I don't know, John, if you want to go further into this, because I had included very small notes, but it was to include Snyder in the tin shed and then extend portions of Second Street as suggested, and that was a yes as well. So what are
It's the boundary that's in the sub-area plan that we looked at, not including the whole downtown core, just the actual downtown, the recommendation in the sub-area plan, but that's if you guys want to revisit that, you could.
I just wanted to.
So it's the boundaries that was listed there, and then based on discussion, we decided to push it out to include just those two businesses on the other side of I can't remember the street that's right there, which is Salto or Schneider. Thank you. Just Schneider's garage property. So essentially, it was just including just those two properties, those two lots there was the only change to the original boundary that was recommended.
So it's all of Second Street?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Any other clarifying questions? If not, I will close that and I will open it up to public comment. If you would like to speak on this item, please come forward and give your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
I'd like to speak. Hi, my name is Lee Stadell. I live at 3 Sundown Trail. So I was at the workshop meeting, and I don't necessarily have too many problems with the overlay district. My big concern, I had a couple of things. Number one, we talked about heights and went to 45. I was wondering if there was a way to have spires or turrets, because I think they're kind of a neat design feature. They might make the downtown a little bit more interesting to have like an onion dome or something, whether there would be some way to incorporate something like that. Secondly, the setbacks that we're talking about, my understanding is it's 10 feet from the road and 5 feet from alleys, where alleys are. And so that's going to preclude most of the buildings that are already there in this overlay district. I mean, just about every single building, Kathmandu Plaza, you know, the old post office is in the Jefferson Street right away. All the downtown offices are in violation of this overlay, where every single building in that block, you know, the Crystal Shop, all the buildings on the south side of First Street are going to be in violation. If Roy Young wants to build something, he's going to have to be, you know, 20 feet from the sidewalk. He's going to have a bridge to get to his building. So I don't necessarily have an issue with an overlay, but I'm a little bit hesitant to approve something where 90% of the buildings are in non-compliance when we approve it. That's really the crux of what I want to say.
Okay. Thanks, Lee.
Mhm.
Before Ron gets up, do you want to address that, or do you want to go ahead and move on?
I'd like to ask a question.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
And this would be to Lee, if you could come back. How would you resolve this to get to, so that we could get 100% in compliance? Is the alley the problem?
Well, I think there are no alleys through the downtown block where the Crystal Shop is. I mean, other than the parking lot kind of thing, there's no formal alley there. there's no formal alley behind Smoker Friendly that I know of. And there's no formal alley built currently between Kathmandu Plaza and Kathmandu. So I'm more concerned with the front setbacks, but I'm concerned with the alley setbacks also, just because if we pass an overlay district, which I don't necessarily, like I said, have a problem with, I just want most of our businesses to be compliant with that. I mean, we've got all the buildings on the south side of First Street, every single one, including Bussy Brews, the deli, the co-op, and the Rustic Moose. They're all into the road right away. So they're in violation, right? Already. You know, all the buildings on the other side of the street are in violation, every single one, because they're built on the lot line. Salto's in violation. It's built on 2 lot lines. It's built on the north lot line and the west lot line. So I just, I mean, we could try to grandfather them in. I mean, what happens if they burn? Do they have to, does Roy Young, if he wants to build something, need to build a bridge? I mean, does he need to fill that all in? I mean,
I think, yes, that the answer would be yes. This would be for all future construction.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to do is put in some regulations that when we do future construction, it would look the way we want it to. You know, I don't think, you know, we're going to ask anybody to, you know, try and change an existing building, you know, so, I mean, we all knew that when we're looking at this, that the current layout is in violation, but what we want to do is make sure that we can come into compliance and make it look the way we want with the public engagements and the, you know, the comp plan, you know, going forward. And there is a pretty strong anticipation that in the next 10 years, there'll be new construction over there.
and you're talking about the downtown block.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, that's all well and good. If the downtown block is made into a 1 lot PUD, and we submitted those maps, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. But currently it's a bunch of different properties, right? There's like, I don't know, 9 or 10 different, 7 or 8 different properties in there. None of those buildings would be in compliance at all.
Okay.
Not a single one. And so I just wonder, I mean, is there a way, if we grandfather it in, right? If there's something in the ordinance that grandfathers in existing buildings, that's all well and good. But let's say the co-op burns, right? So now they have to push the whole building back down the hill toward the flood zone. We don't know what's going to happen with the flood zone. Flood zones typically get bigger. In my experience as a surveyor, I see normally FEMA is, and when we have good data, they try to add more water to a flood zone. So now you're squeezing the co-op property or squeezing Roy Young into a smaller space. And there's no way for them to really get to the level of the sidewalk without some kind of a bridge or filling in a bunch of dirt, you know, to get to their first floor of their building, right? And I also wonder about the heights too. I mean, some of those buildings might be really close to the height. I haven't done any of that measurement, so I don't know, but that's a pretty steep hill there. So, and the co-op, I know, for example, right behind the deli, there's a door that's right there at the base. I think if you drop the tape from the top, it might be pretty close to 35 feet. It's a flat roof up there. I've been on top of that building.
We're really stretching this out, Lee. You got to wrap it up.
Yeah. So it's just, I just hesitate to codify or to make rules where 90% of the buildings don't meet the rule.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that feedback. Did you have anything to add to that, John, or not?
The only thing, I think you're right about the grandfathering. I think this process zone districts can change over time. We just talked about that in a previous conversation. I'd also say we do have an averaging tool in the code for building height in that grade situation. And you could, obviously, I think we'd want to bring that back to you, but we could do a review of that averaging tool that we have for building height. That's something that we could just bring forward just to kind of discuss what our code says and whether it's sufficient. But that is a common zoning tool, is some kind of system to average the, so you can fix a grade difference like that. The other thing is conversations on this topic have ranged everything from every line stays the same now to maybe there are road changes at some point. And if that was the case, it may change the situation for everybody. And I don't think we can really contemplate what might happen in the future like that and what you might be looking at. I do think that we know that there needs to be sidewalks on First Street and there needs to be accessible routes and things like that. And I think some of those requirements that we have, we want to make sure that we preserve those opportunities. So I think for Planning Commission, I would just say, I think those are all valid concerns that we should always be thinking about when we think about downtown, everything that Lee said. And the buildings that exist, they can continue to exist. I think we have established that in this. And I think it's just about looking at new construction and what needs to happen for that, I guess is all I'd say.
Okay. Thanks very much. Any other public comment? Go ahead, Ron.
Ron Mitchell, 380 South Jackson. I believe that the two work sessions between the last Planning Commission meeting and this one were valuable to the community, and I wish to thank the Commission for allowing me to freely participate in them. While the majority of the items discussed garnered mutual support, I wish to clarify a few items on my stance. Setbacks and height limits are a major factor in establishing use and value of property. Zoning in and of itself is a major factor in the value of property, and particularly in densely utilized property. Current zoning and bulk requirements have established the density and the volume allowed on the CBD properties. I, of course, have no objection to setback changes that enhance property values, both for public and private benefits, without decreasing the utilization of the volume. However, when setback and bulk requirements are substantially changed or lowered without compensation for those changes to preserve those values, or compensation of some in lieu sort of compensation, such lowering of volume and of values may be a taking under the protections of the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution. Rarely have I heard economic considerations discussed at the Planning Commission level, particularly when subject at hand would enhance the financial condition of the town. The majority of discussions tend to center on how development will look and without much consideration to traffic circulation, parking, and functional efficiency. I bring this up because the proposal to limit a given building to no larger, I guess, than 200 feet in length. In the case of the property owners owned by the Netherlands Central Business District Redevelopment LLC, this could mean 3 or more buildings on a block between First and Snyder's and 119. First and Second Snyder 119. Then, because of the central heating system, and if there was only one building with many other smaller facades that looked like and could be achieved to do the same thing as have separate buildings, instead of having 2 boilers, one that would work and one for reserve for emergency, you'd have 3 buildings with 6 boilers taking up a huge amount of space in a very, very tight situation. So that, I think, needs to be looked at carefully in terms of the sustainability and the economy of scale, so that the cost to the ultimate user can be at a minimum to help maximize the financial gain for the town, the tenant, and the owner. A central building that is extremely cost efficient can be designed with facades that look like many varied and different buildings and give the desired effect of a colorful historic past, very much in keeping with the new sub-area comprehensive plan. Such a restriction would or might substantially defeat functional efficiency as well as environmental sustainability. The climate, particularly the adverse climate and nature of the type of buildings that can seed and is critical to redevelopment. With about 5 months of business activity that produce above break-even point revenue for the operating businesses, space utilization is really critical for these businesses. Most of the town's restaurants in this area lack enough space to be functionally efficient in their current buildings. Any reduction in volume availability can easily be a large factor in their success or failure. If a new set of requirements reduce volume, there needs to be compensating allowances that allow for that volume to be either recouped by additional height or removal of some of the setbacks altogether. There is one item that came up at the work session that I did not get time to fully address.
Ron, we're well over 3 minutes, so try and read fast, buddy.
All right. I hope someone would ask me to continue as you did for Lee. There was at least one item that came up at the work session I had not got time to fully address. I mentioned the possibility of the setback at the roundabout. That's because in the future, most likely, you'll need to have a larger roundabout. And if you don't have the space for it, it's going to continue to be a very dysfunctional type of roundabout. I'm sure that sometime in the future, the state would want to do that. Secondly, I mentioned now that snow thrown against the building would necessitate some improvements. Additionally, constant vibration from large heavy trucks and equipment is irritating and destructive. That would also require and needs to have a larger setback. Lastly, I think the property owners on the south side of 2nd Street should be advised of the setback considerations by personal conduct. Most of their property, and Lee mentioned this, are anywhere from 2 to 4 feet into the street. And they would be really unable to redevelop in some cases if the setbacks made their building so small it would be improper to do so. They would certainly need to know that and be told personally before such a decision is made. The town proposed changes to zoning will impact our town's future, economic as well as environmental. I hope that I can be a part of a great success for the town.
Okay, thanks very much, Ron. I appreciate that. It's now 7:20 and we're going to take a 5-minute break and then come back at 7:25.
Could I ask one clarifying question first?
Okay, how long is that going to take?
The size of the traffic circle is addressed in the comprehensive plan already, right?
Multimodal plan.
Oh, multimodal. So that's been dealt with. I think what I heard is he's asking for proper setbacks to allow that to happen, but it's already part of the bigger plan.
Yes, it's a conceptual level of design, but they did do that level of work on the roundabout project.
Well, if there's a building where you won't put the roundabout, then I have to tear the building down if it's a brand new building.
Let's take a break.
Yeah, let's break and come back at 7:25 and we'll pick this up in earnest then. Thank you. Okay, if everyone is back, we'll go ahead and get started again and bring this back to, or is there additional, we'll resume the meeting. Is there additional public comment from anybody online? There's no one else in the room. Please make yourself known if there's additional public comment. Okay, having heard or saw none, we'll close the public comment and bring this back to the Planning Commission for further discussion on this. So my thought on this, I feel like it's going to be very difficult to meet all the needs. That we can't anticipate. I'm just going to couch this that we can't anticipate every future issue that's going to come up. We're trying to work, diligently within, what we can, and we're not doing this. We're not deciding this all just out of a vacuum. This came from 18 months worth of public engagement with the comp plan process. There was 327 different public interactions through surveys and people that came in person. And what we're doing is taking what has already been recommended and passed in the sub area plan and in the what am I thinking of? Comp plan that we want to, that one of the recommendations that was put in there, and that's what we're discussing. We're trying to get down to the fine details of this. And I know that, we're not going to be perfect. We're not going to figure it all out, every single thing that can come up, but the idea is to try and get to the, 85% solution and what's going to work for, and I think everybody understood that the intent was this for future construction. Nobody's going to be asked to, tear their building down to meet compliance or anything. So with that said, we'll bring that to the Planning Commission, and this would be a good time for us to go over issues that were covered in the worksheet that were covered by Britt, and those who weren't available at the work session or those who are here that have additional comment. I think we should go through this and try and finalize this as much as possible so that if possible, I'd love to have this come back as an action item next month. If we can't get to that tonight, then we'll have another meeting next month. So that said, comments from the commissioners. I don't feel like we need to go right down the line. We know what, if you have comments about stuff that was approved by the majority of the Planning Commission at the work sessions, but you have additional comments or don't agree, now would be the time to bring that up. Please go ahead. And I'm speaking specifically for those commissioners who were not able to be at the work sessions that might have comment on different items here.
Okay, this is Steve. Like Tom, I unfortunately missed. I sent in some initial comments, and I just reviewed those while we were at the break. So and I agree with most of what's here. I guess we still need to talk a little bit more about the marijuana use, right? And that was under the further discussion item anyway. And we started talking about the 200-foot for building. But I'd like to get a little bit more clarification on the building heights, because I don't think I think there's still some concerns there. Everything else looks pretty straightforward with the way the rest of the commissioners have agreed on. So how do you want to do this, Jim? Do you want to finish up the 200-foot and then go to marijuana use, or?
Well, let's see if there's other.
Let's just see if anyone else has any other further comments.
Right. Let's do that and we'll come back. So I got the 3 items that you want further discussion on. Anybody else online or in the room? Go ahead, Timmy.
Yeah, Commissioner Duggan. I certainly recognize Lee and Ron's comments about the setbacks with the current buildings and those complications. And as well as the economies of scale produced by the density if we've got like common buildings over 2 lots or whatever with larger buildings. So I don't know how we can take that into further consideration because I think both of those are significant. Is it any sort of an option with the right of way on First Street, for example, to vacate a portion of that right of way to the front lot lines of those properties? So that they wouldn't be non-conforming in terms of the front setback? Or that might be an issue with the fire department, just the size of the right of way required for there.
Yeah, I think that might come into an issue of the width of the road,
Yeah.
with the fire department's truck. Yeah,
Sure.
I think that will end up being an issue. And then, I'm not sure the town has an interest in giving away part of their land when we already have problems with that right away there. That would be my only thoughts for that. I don't know, John, if you have any other.
I generally agree with you. I also just want to clarify, the fire department still has their regulations that are, they would have to go through, whether anybody would have to go through with development, but I think that that's probably the majority of the concern.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything else there, Tim? No? All right, go ahead, Commissioner Mahal.
Yeah, I would direct this to town. How would you deal with the south side of First Street in this plan? How would you codify this? To make sure, I think Lee's point was if everything's out of compliance, the whole thing sort of loses its, how do we deal with that?
Can you all hear? I can't hear anything.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I thought I had my thing on. So basically what I was saying is typically in land use, a use can continue so long as it doesn't change in a way, like in a significant way, I guess is what I'd say. And so those buildings could continue on as they are now, as long as the use remains principally the same, I guess is how the easiest way to think about it. So did you have something to add to that, Britt? Or
I was just gonna add that some of those buildings do currently have irrevocable encroachment agreements with us.
Yeah.
As well, which means they're allowed to be there, but that can also be revoked.
Typically you don't do a encroachment agreement for a structure that's permanent in nature, but those structures, because of the historic nature of them, they could continue. This is one reason why early drafts of this ordinance included historic preservation language for those buildings which are historic, which would allow them access to different resources, not intending the historic preservation to be a limiting factor, but more of a tool to help those owners preserve those structures, which are a part of the character and fabric of the downtown.
So what I'm hearing is you wouldn't have to do anything special in the overlay plan. The legal structure already exists.
Yeah, they'd be just grandfathered in, those structures for sure. We could, I mean, you could always put language in to make sure that the intent is clear on what that means, because that's where you really get into trouble with code, is you don't want to have people thinking about what the intent was, you want it clear. So that is something we could add, some kind of language that promotes the preservation of use or something to that effect.
Yeah,
And
I'd recommend that.
Would that continue if the building were lost and needed to be rebuilt? Would the grandfather allow for the rebuild to be as it was today, or would it have to then meet the new code?
Our code, I am not 100%. I know it's accurate for some kind, for at least residential structures that are non-conforming. A structure can be rebuilt within a year, and I think, Jennifer, is that all structures are just residential?
I'm just pulling this up. So the code, there is a whole article, Article 7 of the code that talks about non-conforming uses and structures. And it does provide for non-conforming structures to stay in place. And I'm trying to see where it talks about.
I have, so a non-conforming structure may continue to be occupied, provided, however, if the non-conforming structure is destroyed or damaged in any manner to the extent that the cost of restorations to its condition before the occurrence shall exceed 75% of the actual building valuation as determined by the records of the Boulder County Assessor. It shall be restored only to a conforming structure. I don't know if that's what the part you were looking for, Jennifer. I can send
Yeah,
that
and
to you.
then, I mean, it goes on. So it's
Yeah.
it's just gonna be very fact specific as to what happens and the period of time.
Thank you.
But am I incorrect and I look to John and Britt on this, the intent of this is so that all future building, even if it was destroyed, the new building would meet the new code.
Yeah, I think what that code does is it says, and I think most recently, like you could think about a house, if a house burned down, you'd want them to have a window of time to replace their loss. So it does give, I think that's really what the story is the code gives a window of time under certain contexts to build back what it was. And another example of that is Marshall Fire. So in Marshall Fire, they had to step back their building code so that people could actually rebuild within this, what happened. That stuff happens from time to time in municipal context. But I think generally, if a building owner wanted to build a new building, then they would have to build to the standards that you're creating in the overlay district.
Okay. Which is what I thought the intent was.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out, if I understood it correctly, that so the valuation would have to be less than or equal to 75% of the assessed value, according to the Boulder County assessors. That with current building prices and even given the property valuation increases, that would mean that there's no way that any of those buildings would qualify under that conditional loan.
Way that
As
they
a
would,
guess.
sorry, Mike, you're saying there's no way that they would qualify for rebuilding in the same footprint?
Yes, exactly. That they would have to be compliant with the new building code, that they would no longer be grandfathered in.
Yeah. But again, I'm going to bring this back to the comp plan, the public engagements, the sub-area plan. We're looking to not keep it the same as it is. When we have future development, we don't want it rebuilt the same way it is. We want it to be towards this plan that the public said, this is what we want our town to look like. So it kind of defeats the purpose if we say, yeah, if your building is destroyed, you can rebuild it in the exact same spot, the exact same way. That's my opinion.
No, agreed. I just think we should be transparent about that and clear. That's what the question was kind of asking, was sort of how is this going to impact future rebuild? And I think we should be honest that it is going to impact them and that it could likely lead to a smaller footprint that could impact what goes up next or what gets developed next.
I agree. I agree with that. And possibly additional cost. Go ahead, John.
Jennifer, could we add language in the ordinance, something to the effect of a historic structure or a structure deemed historic could potentially be rebuilt in a similar footprint scale if it is built in a manner consistent with preservation something to that effect, like something you'd see in a historic preservation district? Like, would that be something that we could do to kind of meet that need, especially since, given the conversation about what happens on, if you were going to, I guess that's my question from a policy perspective, say, and I'm not going to point out any building, but say a building that we deem historic, which typically in land use is a building 50 years old or more that has some kind of character context that you can establish through national state park standards and Colorado standards. If there is a building like that exists and it were to be damaged, could we create a pathway where you could create, not a replica of that building, but something in similar scale and size with similar architectural detail that you could allow to exist in that same footprint? Or do you think that'd be bad for, given the right-of-way situation we have?
I think you could do it. You just would want to be clear, very clear as to the circumstances of how it's done, and reference that other article of the code and mention, that this is an exception of that particular section of the code.
We had that we can bring this back to you because we do need to bring a draft ordinance to you. And what I would suggest to you is downtown, I'm sorry, I always talk about Idaho Springs, but I just know contextually what happens there. The preservation of the buildings in downtown Idaho Springs is of utmost importance, and they have some exceptions in their code for their downtown historic district that allows for, it really allows for certain exceptions from the building code that would create, that would destroy the historic fabric of the building. And I think you could probably use I think what I was suggesting is you might be able to use a similar process if a building was deemed
Historic.
or character or whatever you'd want to say about that.
But you would be,
Deemed by who?
I think that would be, that's what I'm saying. You'd probably want to use like SHPO standards or something to that effect, like real historic preservation standards. And we don't have a body that could do that. So that would be the challenge there. But typically it's a building 50 years old or more that comes from the historical significance of the town and that has some kind of, that you can demonstrate through a survey that it has certain architectural details or story that are significant to the town.
Couldn't the
That sounds like-
Netherland Area Historical Society assist with that?
No, not unless they were, there's like, it's a very quantitative process. I guess they could, that's probably false, but there's a very quantitative process and it's usually done by a historic preservation professional and it's done through a very extensive survey. There's a survey process that would be involved in that.
Yeah, I want to be sensitive what Ron was saying earlier about an arbitrary taking without compensation. I really, I think we could do that, but if I were a building owner and somebody said, you've got to maintain this as is or the same footprint, even if it doesn't work for a retail space, in some way you're diminishing the value of that.
Oh, I was saying that could be an exception. Like, so if your house was damaged beyond repair, that's a way that you could maybe, that certain standards could be exempted for a trade-off, like having a, or you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying like Jim said, a new development should generally meet these standards. I think that's Jennifer saying too, is like, if we're creating these standards, the new development needs to meet those standards. But if you wanted to create an exception for a historic use, that is a historic use, I think there would be a pathway to do that potentially.
Okay.
Which, again, I feel like kind of defeats the purpose of the redevelopment of the area down there. But I suppose if there was an outcry from the public and people wanted to come out and save a building or rebuild a building, that would have to be considered. Anything that we do and pass has the ability to be amended and changed by the BOT. So anything we're doing now, if a situation such as Lee was bringing up happened or these things happen, the BOT, you were on the BOT, Tom, the BOT has the ability to come in and make exceptions and change things. But the idea is that we're trying to put things in place that will govern the new construction and how that's going to look, in as many circumstances as we can consider without us trying to figure out every specific item that might come up. There has to be a point where, you put it, get the 85% solution and you go forward with that. And that you trust that the leadership, of the town at a later time, if something happens, is not going to, do something that's going to, intentionally, damage or hurt a property owner. But, I think that we could spend a year, thinking up.
Let's not do that.
Yeah, different things that we're going to do.
But at the same time, I think that you can be assured of one thing: there will be somebody who yells.
Yeah.
But I think I'd go back to why when we started this process, it was to make the rules very clear for somebody who wants to take a project on, so they can live within them. I hate to leave a loophole that says somebody can come in, 1 to 5 people yelling that I don't like this, and then have something stop in its tracks. But the Board of Trustees always can do that, but the Board of Trustees can also be sued. But that's neither here nor there. I like to stay with our intent to make the rules really straightforward, so that somebody knows what they're dealing with and they can sit down and see if this makes financial sense for them to continue.
Well, I kind of feel like we had a great example of this tonight. We had a applicant come in,
Mhm.
use that had not ever been considered before. There's a non-conforming lot with the residence on there, and we did our best to accommodate her, and we're going to look to try and accommodate her. And I would like to think that future town leaders would do that as within their ability as much as possible. But that we're trying to, again, I keep coming back to this, take the comp plan, take the feedback from the residents, the most in public engagement we've had on any of these kind of things, and craft this together so that, as you said, future developers can look and see if we're going to build, this is the standards that we have to meet.
And I'd like to finish this process at some point.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't,
No? Okay.
yeah, I would go on for another half hour, so.
All right. So I can't even remember what the original question was that got us started on this, to be honest with you.
You guys were going to talk about the
Historic.
the 200-foot max building size,
Yep.
and that's why the setback question came
And it
up.
was a setback, yeah.
Okay. So I believe that we're in agreement on the setbacks, and we understand that the current buildings do not meet that, but that the whole intent is for future redevelopment that it would meet that. So the 200-foot building size, no larger than 200 foot, this was recommended in the sub-area plan. Did you have something to add there? Go ahead.
Yeah, so when I asked Cheney how this number originally came about, she said that is about the length of the existing cluster of buildings that are side by side on north side of First. So you still have to modulate the structure to look like a bunch of attached structures, but that is how they came up with that number.
So she feels like that's from the Decent Bagel all the way down to the rock shop. She feels like that's about the 200 foot, and that's what she was basing that on.
Yes, correct.
Okay. And one of the things that we talked about here was no more than half a block, that we didn't want a big block long building. Maybe that is the more appropriate measurement tool, as opposed to, because were you able to find out what the actual distance was in feet for First Street there along there?
I did not get
Oh,
that, but
okay, that's
I
okay.
can still keep looking.
We'll figure that out. But Ron had told us at the work session that he thought that was about 720 feet in length, and so 200 feet would then say, okay, we got to have 3 separate buildings. And that kind of comes in conflict with the recommendation that was talking there, no building that is larger than a half a block in scale. So, without the exact footage on there, and now knowing that she was looking at that and basically saying, hey, based on the current structures that are there, I think the intent is not to have a giant monolithic building like the casino right as you drive into Blackhawk that occupies an entire block as you make that right up to Central City. Go ahead. Do you have some more to add there?
No, I was just gonna ask, where do you want the measurement from? Because I can do the measurement on the property assessors, actually.
Let's do it from the sidewalk there, from the rock shop to Snyder Street.
Okay. Okay, I'll get back to you with
All
that
right.
in a second.
Yep, that would help.
But I feel like the no larger than a half a block in size kind of meets that intent of not having a giant monolithic building on there. Is there discussion on that, or disagreement or agreement? Okay, I see a thumbs up from online. That's good. Okay. Well, I would be willing to look at that, having that changed to, instead of having that be the 200 foot, my personal opinion, one vote, that I think that the half a block, no larger than half a block in scale, meets the intent of what we're trying to do there. Did you have an answer on that?
I just wanted to confirm. I'm sorry, I got like minimum sleep last night because of sick pup. So from the rock shop to Snyder Street, correct?
Right, the whole.
And this is a rough estimate based on property assessor is saying 501.49 feet.
501.49 feet.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's not much
Found the
more
same thing.
Yeah.
than the
Did you-
200,
yeah.
200 feet. But do we have any issue with, instead of having it be no larger than a 200 foot front, maybe, oh, okay, go ahead, John.
Not an issue. I just, half a block is a little subjective, so you might want to we could link that to an actual number or like some other.
Why not just keep it at 200 feet if we feel that meets what we're trying to accomplish?
Well, Ron earlier came and talked about the challenges that would create, making it have to be 3 separate buildings as opposed to 2.
500 would be 2 buildings.
Yeah, 2 buildings.
Yeah.
I'd make one exception, and that's I talked about before, the subterranean part. You might have a parking structure that's underground, that's going to go bigger. And you don't necessarily want to break that into 2, but it doesn't affect the eye line, but it happens below the ground.
I don't think I think I can say that we could probably find a plan for that without reinventing the wheel, like something about the language for that.
Yep. I'd be comfortable with that. I don't want it to extend to the part that's not seen.
Well, let's do this. Let's find out the exact number. I like the half a block, and from what I'm hearing from Britt, Cheney basically kind of eyeballed it and did an estimate based on the current buildings there. I think the intent is to not have it be larger than half of the block. So let's figure out what the exact number is. If it ends up being 256 feet, let's figure out what that is for First Street, or 250 feet or whatever is going to work. But I like that half block as the determining factor, no larger than half a block, so that we don't have a 2/3 of the block or the entire block. Anybody else have comments or concerns about that?
Let's take it to Attorney Metz and see if there's any issue or recommendation on whether we use feet or block size.
I mean, that is tough, because you don't really, I'd want to think about this.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Why don't we just put
I
it
just
down
point out
the
that
way
if
it
we-
is and get a good measurement because we're gonna have to come back next month to do this. And do it, yeah, my mic's on. Everything we could do is put it in there and then leave that footage blank. And then, we can write that in next month.
That sounds like a great solution. What did you have to add there, Mike?
Agreed. I just wanted to point out that if we do it by blocks, if you think of a block as square or rectangle, half a block would mean you actually have to divide it into 4 sections because there's frontages on each side. Did that make sense?
Just trying to throw extra wrenches into our.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying that we should use feet.
Just do it
not
next.
blocks.
Let's
All right, well,
find out
let's
exactly
continue
what
that
it is.
forward. I think the intent is that we don't want it to be larger than half of the First Street block.
Yeah.
200 feet may end up not being the actual number, but I think that
Great.
we're
Yeah.
going to figure that out, and so that we can continue moving forward.
Great.
Let's go to the 45-foot height, and I'll just couch this a little bit for Steve, who wasn't at the first work session. We asked this when this came up. We asked Cheney Boswick about this, and her answer was there's really not much difference between 43 and 45 feet. We thought this was kind of a hard limit, and she said basically what was said by Britt, that she kind of looked at the scale of the other buildings in town, the Kathmandu Plaza, and looking at Tungsten Village and just the surrounding buildings, and that's where that number came from. And basically she said, 2 feet isn't a noticeable difference in that, and that that she felt like that would still meet the spirit. But when I found out there wasn't like some hard regulation somewhere or something, that got pulled from, I kind of felt like then, the group that was here at the work session felt like, oh, well, then, I think we can make this change from 43 to 45 feet for a pitched roof, based on some of the discussion that was happening. And they showed, some of the setbacks for the 3rd floor. It would either be set back 20 feet from on the third floor or from the property line all the way for the entire building was some of the renderings that they showed quickly for us. And we felt pretty good about this. So those of you that weren't there or have some concerns, now would be the time to bring them up about the height.
So what was the, was that for a flat roof or you said a sloped roof, right? 45
Pitched roof, yes.
pitched roof? Okay. But what
35
was
still
the,
for the flat roof.
it's 35 for the flat. Okay.
And
And
that was also going to require the step back and what she showed was a rendering of the 20 feet, either stepping back for the entire building front, which was something that Ron said he might consider to have additional usable space for the storefronts and eating areas or something, or at the third floor, it would at least be stepped back 20 feet.
yeah, my only concern originally with the building height was obviously the higher you go, you get shading and snow melt is more of an issue, particularly for with the winds that we get here and so forth. So I wasn't sure whether that number was based upon studies that have done shading or snow melt, or was it done more as just the size of a building without looking at the specific location? But it sounds like it. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
my impression from her answer was that it was based on looking at the scale of other buildings in town, that there was no shade studies or deep process. That's kind of what we expected, was for her to say, hey, here's all the data backing up why it needs to be 43 feet. And then when she was like, yeah, not really a big deal, we were all kind of surprised, I think.
Mhm.
But the step back, I think, would really, help with that shading issue you're talking
Yeah,
about.
right.
Okay.
And we're at 35 right now, correct?
That's the current height.
Mhm.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
So it's 10 feet difference for a pitched roof, but it's set back.
Step back at least 20 feet as it's written now.
Okay.
Just, this happened a little bit ago, but remember there was a bit of conversation about what kind of pitched roof was appropriate too. You guys did talk about that at that first work session. Could you just have a single pitch or did it need to be a double pitch or?
Right. They were talking about whether or not it would just be an angled roof or not, that it would not be appropriate for it to be just a single. Is that correct? Am I getting that right?
I don't think you guys actually gave direction about that, but there was a little bit of conversation about that.
Yeah. I'm not an architect, so I don't know that I have the ability to talk about roof design.
I just come back, what do you need from us to call it completed staff work? I mean, we have to direct something.
I think honestly, you said no complex building or roof types, like no mansard roofs, no butterfly roofs.
Does that cover
I
it?
feel like that's sufficient. I think that gives you what you were looking for there. I think you could I think what we're really looking for is the height.
Okay. So I agree. I think that covers
what
it.
we talked about in the conversation was about the shed roof. So having one single long sloped angle with like the front of the building then being permissible is 45 feet. I think that was the concern, as opposed to the
unless it was the entire building was stepped back 20 feet from the property line. That was what they showed us in the rendering, and we agreed that would meet the intent. And again, this is from the work session. Not everybody was able to be there and see that, but
sorry about that.
That's okay.
And
people got lives. We're volunteers.
Yeah, I just want to make sure he's got what he needs to wrap this up.
Okay. So this would be if you have a heartache and feel like you're not going to be able to vote to approve this because we're looking at 45 instead of 43 for the pitched roof piece, now would be the time to let your objections be known. Otherwise, we'll move on to the marijuana discussion.
I did have one question about, because we did have that discussion about whether or not it was going to be dwelling space, that extra floor. That's 10 more feet. And it was just gonna be storage. I remember we kind of talked about it was gonna be attic and not, that type thing. So that, because basically that's 10 more feet. That's a whole nother level from 35.
Right.
So
But-
there was a discussion about whether or not it would be dwelling area.
And I don't recall
I
how
don't
that came out.
recall that we decided
Yeah.
one way or the other.
You didn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
there wasn't a decision there,
I
but we're
think-
happy to add it.
I guess I would ask from a procedural standpoint, do we have to resolve it or can we leave it up to the building owner who's gonna have to apply for a PUD anyway? I mean, how prescriptive do we want to get right now? I would
Yeah.
say, I would go less on, in the interest of getting this thing done, less prescriptive, and we're gonna see this again in real time.
Well, it's a pitched roof, right? So it's not a whole floor,
Right.
if I understand it properly. And I think I put down in my comments that, yeah, it's like it was just mentioned, it could be part of the PUD anyway. So,
If there is.
Just to put in perspective, my last apartment I lived in was a converted attic. And so like people will make a dwelling space out of what they can. So it could be one, even though it's a pitched roof. Literally my ceiling was like here. It looked like Harry Potter's little, yeah. So just to throw that out there, people will do it. It is a possibility even with pitch roof.
It's a big difference.
Just to give you guys that perspective, if that is a thing.
And I think, Tom, you brought that up when we did the apartments, certainly with the Boulder County, they're 35 feet. There was a big discussion about that. So,
Yep.
and they kept it under it. Now, that is a flat roof, but 10 feet is a huge change for a lot of people in town. So you're right, but we also need to make sure we agree that this is where the town should go in the future.
And remember, the plan recommends that you can't use a PUD to get out of the general overlay
Correct.
requirements. So that is
Regulation,
something to remember.
Except for the zoning code says that anything over 5,000 feet is a PUD.
But we would write this to say that it would be discouraged, same as like a rezoning.
Well, we have to work that through.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're redoing it.
So Roger, are you saying that you can't support this unless we come up with a specific?
That's not what he said.
Well, I'm trying to get to the meat of it here. So tell me what it is.
I brought it up because I just wanted to bring up, we did have that discussion,
Yeah.
and did we decide?
There wasn't a resolution on that.
No, there was no
No.
decision.
And is that something that the staff feels like we need to address and get into come up with a specific decision on that? Or can we leave that undecided?
If we said 43, then it probably would be hard to be a dwelling space. Just, back to that number, that would probably prohibit dwelling. I don't know.
We're already in agreement on 45. We're not going backwards.
You guys did nod on 45 is
Yeah.
what it-
All right,
We did.
good deal.
So do we need to?
I think what you have to see the ordinance yet anyway. I think you could you could see what it looks like in the ordinance form. I guess that would be one option. Or you could tell us, I mean,
I'm not gonna go against it. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make
is a
sure
big-
we talk about that. Because this, of all the ones, this is a big issue.
It is.
So, and what you're saying then is we might add some language in there that says it would have to be used for mechanical room or storage or something other than a dwelling
I think
space.
what I think this is a policy question for you. I think you could write something like that in there. But I think the other thing is like when you think about some of the big policy issues that face Netherland, if there was a feasible, safe, quality dwelling opportunity, that might be the most valuable thing for the town. If that was something that you did with the height, that might be a really good reason to say additional height is good. If you have it just set so that it's like, an attic, like I don't know that benefits
Ah.
You know what I'm trying to say?
It-
The
it-
ROI on.
Doesn't make it worth going with the extra
No.
height if it's not, if it's just used for storage is what you're saying.
And to some extent, I think I agree with Tom. Like you're gonna, you want to leave some.
Okay.
Some room, but I
Strategic
it's really a policy
ambiguity.
question.
All right. Anybody online have comments or thoughts on that?
Well, just a question. If you left it at 43 feet and somebody wanted to build to 45, could that be a case-by-case decision based on a PUD? No?
The point would be no PUDs. That's what the overlay district recommends, is that you wouldn't use PUDs to get out of the base zoning. The base zoning would be, it would be like similar to what it says in the rezoning. It says staff should discourage rezonings, which means that we should not recommend them. It would be the same thing here. So if you had a PUD, we would say staff does not recommend based on this language.
So you'd be
So if we-
overruling staff recommendation.
Yeah, basically. But you could also, I mean, that's part of what planning commission does, is there may be a policy question that comes before you that way. But I think that that's an important thing to mention, is that's part of what the Catalyst Project number 2 recommends, is that you set zoning that isn't, not that it's not flexible, but that, like Tom said, it's consistent and it's predictable. So you don't end up with the appearance of spot zoning with different PUDs that are contiguous where they could have similar regulation.
So what you're saying is that if we left it at 43, there's no way to do a 45 in a specific situation.
You could. I think what I'm saying is that the recommendation is to try to create consistent standards. And I think that's why they're saying we should create a process that discourages PUDs to get out of base zoning.
Yeah. The purpose of us doing this is pretty well moot if we then say, okay, you can get whatever you want through a PUD. And if you can get it through there, then why are we spending the time on all this regulation on the overlay district? The idea is that, unless it is some very, I don't even want to say anything, that this will be the standards that are followed. And again, Steve, I will tell you that everyone who was at the work session agreed, based on the discussion and the feedback that we got from Cheney and from the staff and from Ron and from Lee, that 45 was appropriate. So I'm disappointed. I'm sorry you weren't able to hear that. So, you could have a little better understanding of where that came from. But we felt comfortable with it based on the discussion and what she presented.
Okay.
Okay. Going once, going twice.
How close to complete are we?
Well, this might be a
Okay.
late night. So let's go on to the marijuana use on First Street. And what happened was Mike wasn't able to be at the second work session. So he submitted an email that kind of talked about why he felt like this was discriminating against marijuana-based businesses. And I'll let Mike go ahead and you convinced, your letter convinced a couple of us to relook at this.
Okay.
So why don't you give us your
Yeah.
point of view, Mike?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it was, I wasn't thinking of it as discriminating against marijuana-based businesses, but I was just thinking that the differences between an alcohol-based business like a liquor store and the existing marijuana businesses there's really not much of a distinction. I mean, neither of them allow minors in. They're both about inebriation. Families visit them both. I just I don't quite see why marijuana would be excluded and alcohol allowed, other than kind of the old history of the war on drugs with a lot of misinformation about the dangers of marijuana. I have no skin in the game per se, but I just because I do know some people at the Silver Stem. They're all good people. It's a friendly place. It's no different than walking into a liquor store, and I didn't I don't think it would detract from a family-based atmosphere of just having a marijuana store. I also think it would be unfair to to revise the code so that we would disallow it in the future. And I know that we're redoing the whole idea of the overlay district is so that we do change aspects of it, but I don't deem this as unnecessary. I'm sorry, I don't deem this as a necessary limitation. That's my shtick.
Okay, buddy. Thank you.
Clarifying question, why are, this is an architectural statement as opposed to us, something should be consistent with the entire town.
Yeah, it's in the Catalyst project. It's one of the explicit recommendations that was made through the engagement process. So it really came out of the survey data and the engagement work.
And looking at how many people are we talking about in that feedback? Was it one person that said this? Was it
I don't know.
overwhelming?
There's no way to know the
Yeah.
exact number of the 327 engagements, how many people have an
Right.
issue with that.
But that's why it's there, is I think that was just expressed in the engagement, but that's why it's a policy question for the board here.
Could I ask a clarification question about the clarification question? Of what year was the engagement done? This is very recent, right?
2024.
This is the last 18 months, yeah.
Yep, okay.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that, going back, 5 or 10 years ago when there were, I don't know, 5, 7 marijuana-based businesses in town. I thought, man, we really don't need any more of these. And I think that sentiment kind of still persists, even though I think we're down to 2.
Well,
Yeah,
code
can I
says we
ask-
can have up to 4. Yeah, so go ahead, Elizabeth.
Can I ask another clarifying question?
Please do.
Are we talking about marijuana use or marijuana stores or both? In other words, I sort of read the original, overlay district talking about, are we talking about like people smoking marijuana if they're in an outdoor restaurant, or are we just talking about marijuana businesses?
I don't think we
Public consumption of marijuana in public spaces is illegal in Colorado.
It's talking about, I think it's most specifically talking about retail and production.
Okay, so it's stores. Okay.
Just to try and move this along, I will tell you that the discussion at the second work session that Elizabeth was there, and she kind of brought up this, and what we came around to was our current town code only allows for 4 of these dispensaries, and so it's not like we're going to get 6 of them on First Street. It's already in the industry, and so I basically was kind of won over by the idea. Initially, the thing was, okay, if we close off First Street and it's it's kind of a festival thing, but one of the things that was recommended in the sub area plan was having a common consumption area on that First Street area if that was closed off for businesses. And Elizabeth said, well, should we just eliminate alcohol too then if we're going to do that? And we're like, well, no, the business owners would be pretty upset about that. And so I was won over to the idea that maybe we should take that out of there and just, even though it was in the public engagement, we don't have to go with every recommendation, and just leave that out. And if the BOT decided that they felt strongly about that, they could address it. But my personal feeling on it was that we just remove that piece. What's the rest of the planning commission feel about that?
I agree.
Yeah, that's probably the best solution because you'll never settle this.
The 4 established 4 that the town code has is good enough.
Yeah. Do we have a nod?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's your question to ask, Jim.
Any other feedback from online folks? People in the room are in agreement with that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yes, I think that we as a commission, let's nod and give me a thumbs up if you feel like we can move forward on that. Just remove that issue. Perfect. All right. One last thing. Okay. We're kind of to the point now where if there's other things, if you don't have that checklist in front of you, you pull it out, go down it. And if there's other things, we still have a whole nother agenda item tonight, rezoning education. So the intent is the information we're giving the staff right now will be used for them to write the ordinance, bring it back with an aim next month as an action item. And if we're in agreement, we're going to pass it next month. And if for some reason there's a sticking point, we can push it on to the following meeting and revisit it then. But my goal would be to, let's talk about it now. And if you got some things you want to talk about or resolve, let's get it resolved tonight so that we can get this voted on next month if possible.
Well, you could still vote on it next month with minor changes.
All right, that doesn't change my request, though. If you have some heartache
I
or some
understand.
feedback, let's hear it tonight.
So
Okay.
in terms of process, we directed staff to finalize this, get it into the packet. I'd like to have a week before we meet to review it one last time.
Mhm.
We will try.
But I agree with what you're saying. I'd like to get this complete.
Let me ask Attorney Madsen, does that meet your, can that meet your schedule that we would be able to have this a week before the, or I guess maybe I should be talking to Britt. I don't know who.
I mean, I'm gonna be on vacation packet week, so I'll be working late anyways. So it's really up to Jennifer.
I don't know that, I'm just going to be honest with you. We will get it to you as soon as we possibly can. And I think that can be our goal, but
Okay. You can't commit to.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you.
but I think I understand what you're saying. And I think we can try to get this to you as soon as humanly possible.
And I think I understand what you're asking is, let's get him everything he needs to do his work.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think we can, we understand what you're asking for. So we'll do our very, very best.
Okay. Last chance to bring up issues on all the stuff that's going into the regulation. I feel like we are in agreement on this stuff, and we're never going to come to a 100% agreement on every single item. But our goal is to, again, I keep saying this, come to the 85% solution and deal with unforeseen circumstances down the line.
John, going back to the master plan, when does Board of Trustees want to have this in front of them?
Last month.
I think they're comfortable with the progress you're making. I think they just want, this is one of their priority kind of projects. So I think what they're asking for is just that we keep working on it. So I don't think that I don't think your pants are on fire, but I think we've been engaged in this process for a while. So I think it needs to take what it needs to take, but I think everyone would be excited to see it come towards fruition.
Yep, the end of the year is coming up fast.
Yeah.
And I want to thank Ron, at the last planning commission meeting for his suggestion on the work session, because I feel like that would be all we would be talking about at this meeting, are all these details right now. So, we spent 3.5 hours, in between the two, hashing this stuff out. We found some new information from Cheney, the person who with the SE group that wrote the plan, which kind of enlightened us, which is why we felt comfortable agreeing to the 45-foot pitched roof. And so I feel like we've done the work. Unless you have something to add right now about, I got a burning issue with this or that, then we could have further discussion. I'd say we're ready to move this forward and go on to the next item. All right, having heard nothing, I will take that as consent. And staff, do you have everything you need for this to come back to us next month?
We do.
Yes.
All right, great. Any comments on this, Attorney Madsen? Anything you need to add?
No, really good work that all of you did tonight, getting this forward and giving direction to staff.
Great. All right, with that, we'll close this item, agenda here, and move on to item 7.1, rezone education, for whoever is going to present that.
So I believe that's me. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Jennifer Madsen, Town Attorney. So the purpose of tonight's presentation and what's in the packet is really an education for you. It's informational item, and it's to give you an overview of how the town of Nederland can approach rezoning as you work to implement your recently adopted comprehensive plan. So as you know, the town adopted the new comprehensive plan, and that lays out the long-term vision for land use and development. One of the next steps in implementing the comprehensive plan is to bring your zoning regulations and your zoning map into alliance with that vision. And this work would fall under Chapter 16 of your Nederland Municipal Code, and that governs that's your zoning chapter. So I will give you a framework for how that's done. You'll need to make some decisions along the way, and that is whether you want to rewrite Chapter 16 in its entirety or pursue more targeted amendments, such as those that are specifically called out in your comprehensive plan. Maybe deciding on what your priorities are and what resources you have related to those amendments. Rezoning is a process. It's a multiple step process, and you have to comply with state law. The first step is to confirm that your zoning map reflects the land use categories and policies that have been adopted. So this would be reviewing land use maps, descriptions, and then translating those into a zoning district. Right now you have zoning districts identified in your code. You can change those zoning districts. For example, in the comp plan, one of those new zone districts that's called out is your flex zone district. If you do create a new zone district, then you have to complete a set of regulations for the zone district that spell out what you can and can't do in that particular zone district. So if you were to adopt a whole new zoning map, then you'd have to look at your districts and decide how those apply to specific parcels. And you'd have to go step by step and look at each parcel, determining what district would apply to that parcel. Then you would draft your map. Any type of amendments would need to go through public engagement. You'd have to have notice, public hearings, and opportunities for community feedback. The Planning Commission would make a recommendation, and the Board of Trustees would hold your hearings and vote to adopt those changes. And all of those, again, would be need to be consistent with your comprehensive plan. So in the packet, in the AIM, I did discuss that, again, there are a couple of different options. One of the options is to do a comprehensive full rewrite of Chapter 16, new regulations, and a new zoning map. That would be a very thorough process. It would, update your zoning code to fix any inconsistencies, update it, but that would definitely be a very resource-intensive process. The other option would be to do targeted changes, so rezone, smaller number of parcels, adjust existing districts. For example, one option would be to implement a flex district. And then the third thing you could do is a more hybrid approach. You could begin your comprehensive rewrite and then also address maybe urgent site-specific zoning. A couple of things to mention and I know these have come up with the planning commission before. But there's terms that are used when you talk about rezoning. And that is, one term is spot zoning. And that occurs when a single parcel is rezoned inconsistently with the surrounding area or with a comprehensive plan, often to benefit one owner. Courts may strike those decisions down if they appear to be arbitrary. So the rezoning must be clearly tied to the comprehensive plan and, fit within the overall goals of the community. Another thing that you want to consider related to rezoning is downzoning a property. I did hear this come up in the meeting tonight, and that is when you reduce allowable uses or density. This can raise takings constitutional concerns. However, it's really a case-by-case decision. Rezoning has to allow for continuation of allowable uses of the land and need to be tied to health, safety, and infrastructure capacity. So the fact that you may change zoning, change regulations, even take away some uses, that doesn't automatically mean that there's a takings claim. Really, you have to very restrict the use of the property. So that is the overview. I did have some Q&As at the bottom, frequently asked questions, but I'm happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Okay, thanks very much. That was a very helpful overview on this. I believe we're going to be looking at this going forward. I'm not sure. So I guess I'll look to the staff. Is there a recommendation on the process? I know that we've already talked about the rewrite of Chapter 16, and my feedback was that was going to be a much bigger project than what we as town volunteers and the amount of time we have to do that without some outside help like the SE group or some other group like that. Do you guys have an idea on time frame and maybe a recommendation on what would work best for us?
I have an idea, and so I'm just going to kind of put this out there for you all. I think that when we think about Chapter 16, it's a complicated chapter for all. I think, Roger, you guys, some of you have seen it for a very long time, but there is a lot of nuance to how it's written. And one of the things that Britt and Jennifer and I were talking about is I don't think it hurts any of us to go through the different process we have like this, like rezoning. How does rezoning work? What's going to happen if we have a lot line adjustment or, whatever it is? How do our basic practices work? And the reason I say that is because if we do that, we can start looking at the code and reviewing it. And that could be something that we do in discussion even, and really thinking through our process and does it work for us and what we need. Probably similar to what we did for the creation of the overlay district and using some of this more like maybe work session or discussion time to do that. I do think when it comes down to whether you should do a targeted rewrite of the code or maybe look at a comprehensive rewrite of the code, my gut feeling tells me that a comprehensive rewrite is probably not a terrible idea, but it is a big process and there's probably some costs associated with that. We can get grants from people like the Department of Local Affairs for that. I think that's something we could identify if that is a strategic priority that you guys want to do, is to find some funding to help us with that. But in terms of what we can do, I don't think we necessarily have to wait. If that funding is hard to come by, I think we can start chunking out the code and working on it a bit at a time. Or if you guys wanted to use a task force to do some of that, I think that's okay too. But I think what really the point is we have this, and I think this came up during the comprehensive plan conversation several times. We have this document now. It's very big. I think we all have read it, but like really making sure that we, as a body, understand what it's asking us to do in your context of planning commission could be a really useful practice as we kind of go through this looking at Chapter 16. I realize that could take a few months to do something like that, and we only have 1 month, meaning a month, but I think that might be a good starting point, and then we could look for resources to do maybe a bigger comprehensive project. But Either way, I think there's I don't want to call it book club, but I think there's a bit of a book club part of this, and just like going back through and reading through language and deciding what it means. That will also really help staff, because oftentimes our code just has things that, like tonight, like the bakery issue, that is a issue that took, it wasn't decided in 1 minute. That wasn't something that came up in 1 minute. Is the result of literally weeks of work because of the confusion in the code. So I just want to say that, like, it helps us as we kind of go through process to make sure that we're aligned to kind of what our general understanding is, which will help make sure that our processes are more efficient and quicker for the public as well.
Okay.
This is Steve. Just let me add to that. And I agree 100% with what John just said. What might be also important is for staff to identify issues that have come up or may be coming up in the future that might help with targeting certain areas of the plan as well. So we have, kind of a starting point as to where to go with it.
And I would add one point. I learned more sitting down looking at your chapter 16 marked up with all the historical cases than anything I've done here. So going backwards in time as well as forwards in time, I think is important. A lot of these, we've hit the brick wall and resolved a lot of things. Let's not wait to hit the brick wall again.
Right.
Other feedback from commissioners online or in the room? Okay, well,
Jim?
go, sorry.
Wait, you were looking there. I guess my thoughts were, I've been trying to encourage you to do this and get going on it, but actually I have not thought much about the process. So here we are. So I liked, the book club idea of reading the zone, the chapter 16 and using some of the examples that we need to work on right away where we actually have some confusion. I would also feel like it would be very good for me to be able to, look at some of the targeted issues that the comp plan brought up. And 'cause I know some of them actually weren't really truly what our chapter 16 was saying. So, where are there some conflicts of the comp plan and in the chapter 16? And I get my final thought is though that I would also encourage all of us to remember that 1982, that chapter 16 was a boilerplate from the state, and these guys adopted it back to the board then. And, without the zoning map is certainly here, but all the rest of chapter 16 and those pros and cons were just adopted, cut pretty much boilerplate. And now we have 50 years of, well, this issue came up and here's an ordinance that took care of that. Next, this issue came up, here's an ordinance that took that. So it actually is, as Tom said, a historical record of, what we've kind of did and why we did it. So yeah, we need to consider that as we change it, why were these, why is that there? But yeah, I think that's really what I want to say. I'm encouraged, I'm excited, I want to work with you all on it.
I guess I know who's going to be on that subcommittee.
I don't know if it is a subcommittee.
Or whenever we decide, yes.
You could do it on, you could have a discussion item that is set on the agenda where that's just, we just start chunking out sections, some reasonable amount per meeting, and you just start tackling it. I mean, even looking at your purpose in that code, I think to your point, Roger, that purpose statement has a lot of really important language about why we should make the decisions we make. And I think even just walking through it is a really good exercise for all of us. And I think you made a really good point too, Tom. Having a resource like Roger here that can answer some of these questions for us is critical. So like when we go through these things, it really allows us to have the context we need to make sure it stays locally context sensitive.
Okay.
And then there's the tough part, and that's going to be, there's a number of things that are in conflict with each other that aren't in alignment. And I think they came about it as we solved each problem, and now
Yep.
we got to resolve it.
Well, if I was going to throw my 2 cents in, I don't like the first option of let's dive into the comprehensive rewrite of chapter 16. I think I prefer the second option where, and I guess I'll ask the staff, I know it recommends the flex zone in the comp plan. Is there some other issues that are driving the train that are coming up? Like we have some time sensitive stuff that we were trying to get accomplished first.
The comp plan is a dense document. I think what we could do, if you'd like, is maybe we could put together an aim for the next meeting where we could identify the short-term strategies that were planning commission specific that they had recommended we tackle. That list is a little bit more manageable. And I think that is actually really aligns with the Board of Trustees is doing right now too, which is awesome, from my perspective at least.
And John, that's what I was suggesting actually in my comment.
Kind of like Alicia's document that she had on the
Yeah,
last.
just have staff put together maybe a starting point for us.
We could put something together so you can see there's already a table in it. So I think it would take us just a little bit of formatting to put together a short, mid, long-term kind of strategy list. And then as we work together to educate ourselves on all these things, because we know the comp plan, there's things in there that you're not, it's just like the marijuana thing. That was a recommendation from a survey that the expert team said, hey, let's not do this. And so there's going to be things in the comp plan like that too. But having that kind of holistic conversation between chapter 16 and the comp plan, I think would be super useful.
That's a great starting point.
So do you see us doing more, a subcommittee or work sessions, or trying to tackle it a hybrid approach where we're doing a subcommittee and work sessions? Do you guys have a recommendation?
What if we just dedicate agenda time? And I think this point's been made that there are meetings where we do not have action items. If we were to dedicate agenda time and discussion to, whatever seems like a good bite size of the sections to read that's reasonable for the team, and then the comp plan, like whatever needs to go. So we create like that kind of structure. So there's a roadmap. Then if we have something that comes up, like where we're like, oh, this does need to be addressed, you could create that subgroup that could do that, or direct staff. If it needs to become a bigger issue, we could have a work session. But that way, like, you're not creating a bunch of extra structure unless and until that you identify one of those things that requires it.
We can just sort of see where it goes and then decide whether you do work sessions or subcommittees or maybe several subcommittees, whatever. Just do the starting point and go from there.
For the entirety of chapter 16, this is a review of that, or I'm just trying to understand. I thought, go ahead.
I thought you said that like the flex zone. I guess my thought would be, why don't we look at the bullets that the comprehensive plan talked about?
Okay.
And that would get us into the heart of the whole thing.
Yeah, that's better.
And some of them I know have actually already done. It was irrelevant.
Okay.
And spot zoning was, not spot zoning, flex zoning. There was some, and I actually have no problem with that. But a lot of the things they said in flex zoning, it was actually, we're doing. It's actually allowed under all our little footnotes in the zone. So I think by looking at all the comp plan and then comparing with what we have and what we need to do, that would be a good tool to start. I would also, as I always said, there's those non-conforming uses there, part of the industrial thing that, even segue into that would be a heck of an exercise to get clearing up on that too. So, but I think comparing with the comp plan
You're
is
right.
a good start.
I think you're absolutely right. You have, I think if you just look at the code, there's 13 articles, something less than 300 sections. So I think if we do what Roger says, like then you could identify priorities for 2026 very easily that way. And then we could still fit in this general reading of chapter, because some of it, like, for instance, the things you guys just worked on, the affordable housing variance and things like that. Some of those sections are just cursory review, I think. And then But I think if we do what Roger said, it will prioritize the critical work.
Okay. How much room do we have in upcoming months? Do we have a lot of stuff on the agenda other than the overlay district? Britt?
So we're gonna have a couple land use applications coming up, but I don't see why we can start talking about this in November,
Okay.
if that sounds appropriate.
So that one, and then the coming back with the use table.
Yep.
For the CBD. Okay.
Correct.
I think that's good. I'll tell you what, it would also be helpful to, I have absorbed it anyway, absorbed the recommended changes in the zoning. But we haven't really had a discussion about it and whether or not those recommendations fit. So I like that approach too. Any more feedback from other commissioners online or in the room on that as an approach? Okay. I think we have a consensus then. Let's do that. And we'll just kind of take it in chunks and do what we can do on that and see where we get. Is there anything, I guess I thought that the flex zone thing, maybe there was some urgency behind that, but is there not, or?
No, I think that's Roger's point, is that is one of the comp plan short-term goals. And I think also like looking at the rezoning map and like maybe trying to make sure that the zoning map for the town is it's update. I mean, we have the updated map, but like maybe making sure that the comp plan, I think knocking that part of it out, is all the zoning correct from the comp plan, the recommendations. Maybe that's really the first thing. And that flex zone conversation, that may be a good one for a work session because, and Britt could speak to it better than me. She's been doing a lot of research on what other communities do as a flex, what flex means. And we can bring a name on that. But I think that's probably very work session.
Okay, so that would be more oriented toward a work session, but the other stuff we
probably
can do during.
But we'll bring, maybe what we could do if the board's comfortable with it, we could break down short-term, like at least the short-term, like these are the number one strategies they said that we should adopt as quickly as possible so that we can start that conversation and you guys can start developing a work plan. That would be one thing that would be super. We have our forecaster document that I think you all know about that, but this would allow us to be very proactive with setting the annual calendar because we could kind of schedule that work. And it will be preempted if there's a hearing. That's always going to be the most important thing. But by and large, that way we have a work plan and that helps staff kind of be able to manage.
Plan ahead and know what they got coming up to prepare for. Yeah. Yeah. I like it. Okay. Feedback?
I have one feedback. It's if we could get a good size zoning map of our existing zone. Because it always seems like when we have that discussion, we're all going to our little computer and there's a little map and we can't even tell the difference between the colors. And everybody starts saying, is that neighborhood commercial? But if we could actually get a pretty good sized map.
Something like that poster board right
Yeah,
there.
I have a print off about that size and I can bring, I
that
have
we
one of
would
those
have.
stands.
Yep.
And I could bring it and we could have that honestly at the meetings for however
got
many
it.
we need.
I'd love to have that there for reference, even if
Yeah.
we're not talking about stuff. I mean,
Okay. Yeah, I think we could put it on the opposite side or something, yeah.
There's the
Definitely.
wall it'll go on.
there you go.
Exactly.
Go right up on the board. Okay. Thank you so much for the overview on this. Or I guess I should say, I feel like we've come to consensus. Do we have a nod from everybody that that's the approach we're going to follow, this hybrid approach? Yep, I see thumbs up from online.
Yeah.
Nods in the room. Okay. I think we're decided on that. We've given feedback to the staff. Thank you very much, Attorney Mattson, for going over that. I'm sure you'll keep us straight on all the future stuff on that. Is there anything else you had to add on this block of instruction, Attorney Mattson?
No, nothing else for me.
Okay. Okay. With that, then we'll close that and we'll come to the staff reports then, if there's.
Yep. So a few things I wanted to outline. We are starting our budget season. So staff has been meeting with Rita and John to really kind of dial that in. So we took like a kind of rough draft of just this is what it looks like to the board last week, 2 weeks ago. And we've made some updates. Like my department specifically is meeting with Rita as I'm making adjustments. So happy to share that with you all as we're moving forward. In the Parks world, I did want to outline that they are almost done with their Parks, Recreation, Open Space and Trails Master Plan with the help of their capstone student, Maya. Another,
Who is doing that?
so it's the ProSab, and also they have a capstone student, Maya Diaz, who's working with them. Her master's degree is in urban and rural planning.
Nice.
And so, yeah, she's helping them complete that. So final adoption is anticipated soon on that, and they're just making sure it aligns with the priorities of the board and the strategies of the board.
Will we see that at all?
Yeah, I'm happy to bring that to you guys if you have any interest in it. Absolutely. I don't know that it's ever gone to the boards in the past, but I don't see why it couldn't
Maybe
for
under a
feedback.
staff report as informational
Yeah.
for us just to review.
Yeah.
Is that okay or not?
I, no problem with it.
Yeah, I think that's a
I think
great
they'd
idea.
actually love to come talk to you. And we've been talking about cross-board communication. I think this is a great opportunity for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Some of it is we just like to know what's going on.
Yeah. Another thing that I did want to highlight in the parks world is there were some, if you haven't been by it, the rink got deep cleaned. They painted all the buildings, redid the deck and the shelving, and continue to do weed and fire mitigation over there. It looks really good. They've got some pictures here, but if you have the chance, definitely go by. They're starting to make progress on it. Another thing is they've begun construction on the Rink Link Trail. So just by removing some trees, talking to neighbors within the area, I've actually received really great feedback at town hall from some neighbors there who really had great interactions with our team. And so a lot of work going on over there. As for streets is continuing to culvert work, ditch, clean outs. Also prepping for the winter. Another awesome thing is Josh got married last week.
Nice.
And yeah, so very excited. Town staff was very happy for him. And he'll be going on his honeymoon next week. So he's here for the week, kind of a week of work, and then going back out because we can't take multiple weeks off here. It's too hard. But yeah, plans for the month, just touching up some roads before the winter months begin, and then beginning to get new rubbers and edges for the plows. So they're just getting ready for that season. Something in my world that'll kind of play into this is next week, the new website is going to go live. I do still expect some changes to continue to happen over time. The goal is to really have the builders, the licensees, holders, the community, the boards really look at it and kind of, give feedback of how is the walkability of the website and accessing. And so one thing that's on there is our plow ops. And so that'll really be highlighted. So, when they're coming to your neighborhood, things like that. So something really cool that will be much easier to find on our new website. Let's see. The other thing I wanted to highlight is we're getting tons of core requests. If you didn't see that in Macy's, we get them all the time. We've had some pretty in-depth core requests lately. And so that's just always busy, but it's renewal license times, business time. So we're keeping Macy really busy.
That eats up a lot of staff time too, doesn't it? To
Core requests,
Yeah.
yes. So the first hour is free and then we provide quotes, but yeah, it is a lot of digging and making sure like we don't provide emails and phone numbers and things like that. So you do have to go screen through them.
redact
Yep,
everything.
redact all that information. So you'll see on there some core requests requested that information, and we just let them know that we're not able to give that, but here's what we are able to give. Our code enforcement, we actually did drop our cases. I'm constantly getting calls, but so far we've had really good success with people kind of resolving them before we get to that violation portion. We do have a new Safe Built Code Enforcement officer, so I will probably have something about him or have him join one of our meetings to introduce himself. Everything's really transferring over from Jake Cook, who's now the account manager for Safe Built, so still in a capacity working for town, to Cameron, who will be our new, he's been with State Built for a while, worked for a bunch of different communities, and is now coming to work for Netherland and some communities over here.
Have you seen their response times improve on things that you needed? I think you had mentioned, no, we're still working on it. Okay.
Yeah, so John and I met with the new building. We do have a new building official that we finally got to meet, and some of our new inspectors. We do have a really great team. I think we're seeing a lot of improvement with our inspectors, and the relationship is definitely being built with our reviewers to hopefully get better timelines. And so John and I met with them, and the plan is for me to talk more with their planners and technicians to get realistic timelines, especially during our seasons. It would be helpful to really relate, like our peak season, you're looking at 10 days, you're not looking at 5 days. And so we're really working on that and working on, possibly contract, what that could look like based on what the experience I have had.
Okay.
So yeah, so we're still working with them and having those talks, and it sounds like they're having those talks with a lot of communities. So we're not the only one. I don't feel bad. I didn't add an update to the new website update with the new mock one, but I will send that out to everyone. I just sent it to the Board of Trustees today, and so really just knowing there's still some broken links and things that are there that I've been hands on the past 2 days on. So there will be some changes, and I wanted to continue